New York City, the center of the global financial marketplace. Here is we here is where we will deliver the pivotal blow to add to the sense of global chaos. In assuming command of this operation, I have assessed our resources and come to a pivotal conclusion. We are well manned but poorly outfitted. This must be rectified immediately so we can launch a devastating assault, regardless of shield or any other force that may oppose us. Now go, return to your places within the ranks of our enemies and ready yourselves for your assignments. As charred remains fell to the stage floor, a spontaneous cheer resounded from the still standing agents. Hydra must crush this new agency before it can gain a toehold on the world stage, she cried out, her magnified voice drowning out the cheers. Within moments the shouting ended and silence returned. Only a voice was heard. In the process, we will do everything possible to damage America's own resources, undermining the world's confidence and assaulting the United States economy. Already our sister cells have struck successfully throughout Europe. We must do no less in New York City, the center of the global financial marketplace. Here is where we will deliver the pivotal blow to add the sense of global chaos. In assuming command of this operation, I have assessed our resources and come to a pivotal conclusion. We are well manned but poorly outfitted. This must be rectified immediately so we can launch a devastating assault regardless of shield or any other force that may oppose us. Our immediate goal shall be to acquire everything we need by any means necessary in preparation for the final conflict. Now go, return to your places within the ranks of our enemies, and ready yourselves for your assignments. And remember, we serve none but the Supreme Hydra, as the world shall soon serve us. She paused again and then delivered the final stroke. Hail Hydra, immortal Hydra! We shall never be destroyed. Cut off limb, and two more shall take its place. With that, she strode from stage, leaving only thunderous applause in her wake. The woman's voice was muffled from behind the mask she wore, a mask of solid metal, a mask of solid gold. She was seated at a simple desk in a small office space leased by a dummy op corporation in a midtown Manhattan high-rise. Few knew what went on behind the office doors, and management was paid promptly every month, so they had no reason to snoop. The desk furnishings and other trappings all came from the office catalogue. They had been installed a decade earlier, and were worn here and there, a chip out of the desk, a stain on the carpet. To anyone from the cleaning staff or to a delivery person, this was the workplace of a part-time financial advisor. Yet, like the woman, the office hid its secrets. The gleaming camera and video screen were normally secreted within the desk when not in operation. On the screen appeared the visage of a distinguished European aristocrat. His hair, grey at the temples, was worn long and brushed back, revealing a high forehead marked with the lines. He wore a monocle that seemed to be more for effect than necessity, and an expression hinting at the rage that lay beneath. This was Count Luciano Nefaria, whose ancestral holdings spoke of great wealth, and served as a front for the criminal enterprise known as the Magaya. Similar to Cosa Nostra, the Magaya was a century-old secret society that boasted activities from drug trafficking to slavery, all maintained via a loosely organized hierarchy of families. Their activities had simple goals: money and influence. As the leader of the Italian branch of the organization, Nefaria had earned the traditional title of the Big M, though he found the title vulgar and used it only when he didn't want to involve his own name in a transaction. The woman addressing him was aptly known as Madame Mask, though he also knew her as Giulietta, Giulietta, his daughter. For the moment, though, no family connection was to be acknowledged, lest others might hear. The conversation was not going well. "How can this be?" he demanded, and the question was filled with anger. But she was determined to maintain her composure, something the mask made much easier. "Competition," she replied coolly. "There are no mobs from Russia and Colombia challenging us for the drug trade. Enforcement at the borders is up, and with the new administration in power, the war on drugs is running at full tilt. It was bound to cut into our profits." "Changes in government mean nothing," he countered. "Everyone has their price, or their weakness. All you have to do is find it. Before she could respond, he continued, his voice hard. And rivals are simply targets, he asserted. If they challenge your authority, you eliminate them. Easier said than done, she mused silently. Even with Yaponchik gone, the Russians still have Brighton Beach fortified, with the Colombians have signed a treaty with Fisk, and the Colombians have signed a treaty with Fisk. But rather than antagonize her father, she decided to try another angle. Even if we manage to knock off one mob, another will just move in to take their place, she said. It's always been that way in America, especially here in New York. It's not like in Greece or Simcaria, where our local branches don't have to kowtow to the kingpin. She hesitated and then added archly, "Of course, if the Colombians can arrive at an understanding with the Wilson Fisk, you might come and try for something similar. He would never deal with a mere subordinate, though." That gave him pause, she noted with some satisfaction. Nefaria rarely left his fortress home in Italy, and delegated global operations to regional chieftains. His daughter among them, he didn't answer for a long moment. His face, though, grew red in frustration. "Increase profits or face extinction," he barked, sounding most unfatherlike. She suspected that he had some mad scheme in the works, and needed the money to complete it. His desire was palpable, and it rather frightened her. His claims of doom were hyperbolic, but not all that far from the truth either. The Magaya was quickly being eclipsed on the world stage, a situation the other criminal families had to contend with as well. The world was changing and they had to evolve. She would have to find an answer. There was no alternative. "It just can't be drugs, gambling, or prostitution," she said, her tone confident again. "There's too much competition, and we'll need to stay beneath the radar of the local authorities as much as we can." District Attorney Blake Tower was making it increasingly difficult for every criminal enterprise, and he seemed untouchable, as charismatic as he was successful. She suspected he hoped to follow in the footsteps of Rudolph Giuliani, who had also been a DA, to become the next candidate for mayor. "So the other mobs are scrambling as well," Nefaria said. "Didn't you just note that a vacuum is easily filled? Why not by us, then?" "That would be the ideal in the long run," she acknowledged. "But if you need cash flow now, we need to find a more immediate solution. But you're right," she continued. "We will need to change with the times, or face extinction." His voice had softened, the reality of the situation finally sinking in, but the change was fleeting. "However you do it, just do it quickly," he said sharply. Then he added, "or I will be forced to find someone who can." "Understood," she said in a steady tone. Without warning, he cut the connection. The screen on her desk went dark, and she let out a deep breath. The sound was hollow beneath her golden mask. With a steady hand, she activated the control that dropped the technological marvel back into the desk. Sitting back in the chair, she reviewed her options. She had been considering the problem even before her father delivered his ultimatum, and a network of informants told her of high-placed buyers whom was seeking military technology and didn't care where it came from. It was time to see if they would put their cash where their mouths were. But this wasn't something that could be achieved by brute force. No, she would need to take a personal hand in this operation and approach it with a finesse. And in so doing, she would reaffirm a position within the family hierarchy, making it impossible for Nefaria to simply cast her aside. Father though he might be, no one treated her like chattel. Indeed, she would make herself indispensable. Then she would walk away from the Magaya and everything it represented, once and for all.